All right, we are the only thing standing between you and cocktails. That is never an enviable position to be in. But we have really great speakers that are going to be super engaging, so I don't think this is going to be a problem at all to hold the audience's attention. We've been talking today about the spectrum in capital, right? So there's another opportunity to talk about some folks who have who've done it and they're well on their way, and the sky is the limit. So I'm going to let you all introduce yourselves. I know Brad did a little bit. But I love asking the question, too. Just give us a little bit of the background you don't normally get, like career-wise. How did you start when you were straight out of school, and what did you do? Give us 60 seconds on that, and then give us 2 minutes on the company, maybe a little more than Brad did. And Mike, why don't you go first, and then we'll have Matt do that.
So how I got started, it really started with a journey. I went to undergrad at Georgetown, and I was from a small town in Wisconsin. And after my freshman year, I'm like, I think I'd really rather spend the summer in Washington, D.C. than go back to this small town in Wisconsin after experiencing my freshman year. And my parents in wisdom said, well, that's fine, but how are you going to support yourself? And that was the catalyst to start a painting company, of which by my sophomore year at Georgetown, I had about 200 students working for me. And so long story short, that was my first entrepreneurial venture. And from there, went to Summit Partners in Boston, was on the venture side for 3 years, and then left and acquired a software company in Boston that we were fortunate to sell to an industry competitor in the 96, 97 timeframe. And never been to Charlotte other than the airport. Connecting through, typically go down to South Florida. And so loved the rocking chairs at the airport. That was our view of Charlotte. Came here Labor Day weekend, 96, and fell in love with the city and decided to move here, build a house and to move here, and had no idea what we were gonna do. Started another software company, and we're here. That was in the business of automating the hiring process for technology skill set workers that we sold in 99. And then started AvidXchange, and been doing AvidXchange now for 17 years. So I got a big, kind of chuckle out of if anyone saw it, I think it was a Charlotte Agenda list of the top 30 startup companies in Charlotte that came out last week, and AvidXchange was #1. I'm like, holy cow, we've been at this 17 years. So I guess.
When did you stop being a startup? Right?
So I don't think you ever said, the point is you never stop being a startup. Because I think there's a lot of truth in that, actually, because you have to kind of keep reinventing yourself. So just quickly, for those of you that are not familiar with AvidXchange, what we say, we revolutionize how companies pay their bills. And that is, up until today, we managed from the invoice receipt process, really the accounts payable automation, through the execution of payment for middle market companies. And today we announced an acquisition of a company called Ariat in Boston that really allows us to extend our platform into the spend management area around procurement, purchasing, contract management, and T&E type of expense management to go with the invoice and payment that we do already. So super excited about that and how it extends our platform.
Are those terms undisclosed? Did you disclose?
The terms are undisclosed, as they usually are.
Yeah, okay.
But just what it does is Ariat actually got started around the same time we did, so they've been at it for a while as well. And they made, I was telling our team this earlier, when we got started, our vision was to do both procurement and AP automation together. And after 2 years, we came to the conclusion that we're going to go out of business and basically go bankrupt if we tried doing both of them together, because it was too big of a business process to invest in. So we had to pick one or the other, and we picked AP automation as what we're going to focus on as kind of our first pivot we had as a company. They had the exact same scenario, and they picked procurement. And so now we are 17 years later. They have 2,900 customers. We have, approaching 6,000 customers, and we're able to put the two platforms together.
Yeah, fantastic. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Matt, please do the same for us.
Yeah, so I am a career-long consumer finance guy. I started my career at MBNA, the old monoline card issuer. I helped start up their Canadian operations. I ran risk for the consumer lending portfolio, which was a point-of-sale sales finance business. We used to finance everything from gateway computers to pianos to plastic surgery, which leads itself to some interesting discussions over cocktails later. I was the chief operating officer of a small business lending startup from 2007 to 2010. And then 2010, I left to rejoin what was then Bank of America. I ran strategy for the home loans division, post countrywide, and then I ran home equity at Bank of America. So I've always been attracted to faster growing businesses. I did 2 stints at Bank of America, but even there I helped to grow the home equity business, helped to do the startup in Canada. So I always liked fast growing, more dynamic businesses, and was really attracted to Sunlight. So Sunlight's a residential solar finance company. So we partner with installers and we help customers save money by going solar. We provide the loan. So for instance, if a Tesla representative went out to your house and sold you on solar, and you decided you wanted to go solar and you were looking at the monthly payment, they would introduce you to Sunlight and we provide their loans. Them and 12 of the 15 largest installers and many of the installers across the country. And so I was always very much attracted to that business. It's a fast-growing market, and I certainly like that. And the way customers are going solar is shifting. Historically, they would go solar by taking out a lease or paying cash, and providing loans. We help save customers more money. We make the process easier, and economically, there's less leakage. So installers like it as well. So we're founded in 2014. We're 3-ish years into it, and so far so good. We'll do about $500 million in loans. We've been successful raising capital to help fund our growth. So far so good.
I would say that they're much more defined as a startup than probably we are, but that's awesome.
Yeah, we're definitely a little earlier.
It's great to see. Also, if you didn't know, I saw one of the reports that we tout a lot too in kind of venture rankings, which is going to be a little bit skewed, but both Sunlight and AvidXchange were listed as 2 of the top 10 fintech raises last year. I think there were 5 in the U.S. So 2 of the top 5 fintech raises in the United States of America are sitting on stage, which I think is kind of a cool statement. I also looked at, we looked at top fintech funded startup by state in the Southeast, and the top startup in Georgia, Cabbage was here, AvidXchange is here, Ceteris is here from South Carolina. It's really interesting to see how in a region you can accumulate that kind of connectivity. So talk to us, you chose Charlotte even before you knew you were going to do startup, but talk to us about, for the Southeast, what were advantages of being here? What were the disadvantages of being here?
Yeah. So the advantages, and it started with kind of high on our list, was it had to be a readily accessible airport, someplace that you could get anywhere in the country on a direct flight. And the Charlotte airport, is fantastic from that perspective. So starting with a great airport hub, and then just weather, cost of living, be able to sell our brownstone on in Brookline and Boston and move to Lake Norman. That wasn't a hard sell. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of kind of quality of life pieces, along with a can-do attitude of the city. I'd say the negative is being from kind of the venture background, is Charlotte doesn't have at least it's still really true today, but certainly back in the late 90s, 2000, really struggled for startup capital. And I think that'd be kind of the negative about it. There wasn't a lot of a large pool of startup capital as a group. Some friendly faces here in the room that were part of a group of us that tried to break that mold by the Charlotte angel investors that we started back in the late 90s. But it just hasn't had the pool of early stage capital. And my kind of belief in that is there haven't been a lot of successful entrepreneurial wins from a standpoint of a company that's grown, gone public, had a big, had an exit, where you've created a lot of kind of individual wealth that's, invested back into the entrepreneurial community, like other parts of the country have had. And certainly you have some, now recent examples like LendingTree and what Doug's done. And maybe AvidXchange can be part of that story.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know who weren't here, Charlotte, I think it was the Charlotte Angel Partners back in 2000, were an investor both in you and Red Ventures.
That's right.
So we went through a couple financial recessions in there,
yeah.
But there were some good outcomes of that original angel pool.
Yeah,
in
like
Charlotte,
2.
to be sure. Well, that's 100% more than most funds want, right? So that's all angels are looking for.
Tom Wilson's nodding his head, and he keeps track. So
the one thing I'll say, because Mike talked here about not AvidXchange 17 years in not being a startup, which is certainly true. They're really a total growth firm at this point. But I'll tell you, one of the things that I've said this to you before that's been really advantageous when we started the whole FinTech initiative, and we're trying to explain to people what we're trying to do and the ecosystem we're trying to create and the fertile ground we're trying to make, we could point to AvidXchange and say that We're trying to do that. We are trying to plant seeds in the ground that will grow up to be that and be 1,000 company employers in town. And then people got it. They're like, oh, I understand that. And so your success has really helped, like a big icebreaker. It's helped in the wake of that, clear some ground for other companies, maybe Matt's company included.
Yeah, for sure.
So talk to us again about the same question to you. What's worked and what hasn't? Maybe explain to folks even the recruitment process when you got recruited, because Charlotte was a part of the equation when you got recruited.
Yeah, it's interesting. So Sunlight was actually founded by a PE firm in New York. And so when I came on as CEO, I was the 5th person, so it was really early. But I lived here, and so I had the option to move up there and move the business up there, or stay here and open an office and grow it. And I'm originally from New York, and no offense to any New Yorkers here, but this is just a great place to live, and I've always believed that this would be a good place to grow a young business. The financial services talent was great for us. Obviously, low cost, good weather, all the things that Mike talked about. But it was very intentional for us to choose Charlotte, and so technically keep our headquarters in New York. But about 75% of our staff is here in Charlotte, and we'll grow faster in Charlotte than in New York.
Yeah, that's great. Has there been any challenges in that? Was it a hard thing to convince the PE folks to, or is that just part of the deal?
No, it's funny. So they, as we talk about headcount growth to support the growth of our business, one of their questions is always Charlotte or New York, and the right answer to that question is Charlotte. The right answer is not New York. It's just much more cost effective to be here.
Yeah.
So they're very supportive of it being here as well.
Yeah, two things. It's interesting, and we talk about this a lot in the Southeast, that a $5 or $6 million Series A round in the Southeast acts like a $12 million Series A round in the Valley. And I think one of the things I've seen in the last 10 years, the leveling of the playing field is, and you all can call BS because you're all in the space, but I think venture capital folks are perfectly happy to deploy money in the Southeast and make it work a heck of a lot harder for them than hiring engineers at $175,000 a pop.
Yeah, and I think one of the things for us is it's been really easy to get people to relocate to Charlotte. It's just an easy place to live, and people want to live here. The other thing, and I'll compliment you, Dan, when we opened up and we were going to grow headcount, and we were trying to figure out all the logistics of growing a business and opening an office and everything we needed to do, my first call was to Dan and Packard Place, and we were up and running, and we've grown from literally one person in North Carolina to we're 40 plus today and growing pretty steadily. And Packard just made it really easy for us. And that's really the community in Charlotte. It's just an easy place. It's an easy place to live. It's an easy place to work and grow your business.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are the challenges you all see going forward? So you're at this stage now. You're not a startup in fast growth mode. What's next? Is it accumulation of more companies? And how does that even impact now that you're a net acquirer of companies, but you're based here? Is it almost like the Bank of America roll-up story? Is that going to be Avid's future?
Well, I think we are going to continue to be really opportunistic, but for us, it's around people that are companies that are in our ecosystem that we can either synergistically monetize in a different way by bringing our payment network to their business, have a pool of customers, or maybe our new markets that we're not in. In the case of Ariat, they are actually strong in 2 markets that we're not in today, which is healthcare and education. So we're looking forward to growing in those verticals. But I think also, talent is a big deal in terms of also, what companies bring in terms of talent. We recruit on a national basis for talent, and certainly in any acquisition that we do, high in the list is the talent pool of the company.
Yeah. Matt, what do you think? Where are you all heading?
Yeah,
you're at almost $1 billion in capital raised?
Yeah, we've raised about $1 billion, all forms of capital over the last few years. So I've 6 years in Charlotte. I'm at that point. At 6 years, you're practically a native because no one's actually from Charlotte.
There's 1 or 2 in the room. I remember talking
not
to
many,
them. Yeah.
not many though. So it's been a terrific place in all the ways that I described. The one thing that I'll say is challenging is there's not a lot of capital here. And so despite raising all the capital that we've raised, I think this year I've done close to 100 flight segments. I spent a lot of time at the airport, and I spent a lot of time. The reason that we keep our headquarters in New York is because access to the capital markets. And in our business, we will always be raising capital to be able to lend, and that is definitely a challenge. I think it's getting better. I think people are starting to recognize the talent pool here in Charlotte, but that's certainly a challenge of being in Charlotte today.
Yeah. So let's talk about the region in the Southeast. What do you think is a region we need to be doing differently in terms of collaboration and support. You all are very heads down but driving hard. What have you seen that's good? What would you like to see that we're not doing yet?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So this is helpful. I've had more conversations in the last 24 hours with Southeast capital providers and investors than I have in the last 3 years. And so often I'm flying to New York to take a meeting. We're a short drive down the road from anyone just about everyone that's here. And more of this. And the thing about that being in the South is I don't think we get enough credit for the quality of companies. It tends to be a humble place. And I don't think we get enough credit for that. But it's got a lot of hospitality. And so we've got to do a better job of creating that ecosystem, creating those relationships and lifting each other up, doing introductions and creating the relationships.
Yeah, and to pick up on that, I think the one asset that certainly Charlotte has that's getting better at is really promoting the university type system. And overall in North Carolina, the amount of talent that we're creating is pretty dramatic. And within a couple hours of Charlotte, you have some great engineering programs. And I think the region could do actually a better job of creating a brand around the talent that's being created. And I have saying that because the last thing we need is people coming in and competing with Avid against the talent, right?
Be careful what you ask for.
Exactly.
Mike.
But I think in the sense that it kind of all boats rise a little bit. But I think there is a lot of talent, and I think it's kind of a hidden secret. But I think if we'd be able to, the university system collectively could do a better job of branding, especially on the technology side, some of the talent that they're creating, that would help the region.
Yeah, that's great. If Sarah or someone there could grab a handheld mic, I want to ask the audience to come up with a couple of questions, but while they get that kind of prepped up, question for both of you, because you're highly successful CEOs of companies at this point. There are a number of entrepreneurs in the room, and I think the venture folks would be interested too. If there's been a secret to your success, what is it? What is it? If you had to say one thing that you're really glad you did as a founder, what would that be?
Yeah. So I don't know that there's a single secret. I would say first I'd say so far so good. It's not it's certainly successes. I used to work in MBA, and one of the things we used to always say is success is never final, and that is always true. But I think we've been really successful in we genuinely have a really strong team that understands our space, understands how to lend, understands that we're in a really good credit cycle that won't be that way forever, understands that regulators are always watching, and you've got to do the right thing. And so we've been successful for all those reasons. We create true, genuine relationships with our installers, and that's been really helpful.
Yeah, I'm going to categorize that as never be complacent, right?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah.
So on that, on the recession issue, I did have dinner with the head economist for Moody's last week in D.C., and he actually gave me the exact date of the next recession. So that was pretty interesting.
Everyone ready to tweet that out? Go ahead.
But I think for me, so to me, it's all about the people. And one of the things that I learned early in my career, especially back starting the painting days, is around two things around delegation of authority. Then the second thing that kind of goes with it is once I kind of figured out that I'd be a better leader if I hired people better than myself for the different functional roles. And as a kind of a CEO and entrepreneur, that can be kind of a tough thing to do because you think as kind of leader, I'm supposed to be, kind of the best, I'm the leader. But once you kind of get out of your own way and start hiring people that are better than you are, for me, that's when a lot changed and Avid was able to grow faster.
Yeah, that's great. Well, let's see if we have a couple of questions. We don't often get access to folks like Mike and Matt, and we'd love to see what questions you all have from the audience, and probably more insightful questions than mine. So who's got a question out there for us? Or maybe not.
Cocktails
there we go in the back. Yeah, I know. It was the, don't delay the happy hour, Dan. What are you doing?
This is kind of a generic hot topic question, but there's been a lot of talk nationally about a certain tech company searching for a new headquarters, and the city's very interested in becoming that place, and lots of other cities are. I'm curious from your perspective, do you think that would be a good thing for your businesses and the city of Charlotte?
Yeah.
Be honest now.
So,
honest answers.
So the hidden code is, I'm sure he's talking about Amazon.
Yeah,
So.
I've heard a little bit about it.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question, and I kind of typically have taken to the view is the more competition we have in Charlotte, the better it's going to be for us. Because I think, yes, there might be competition for our team and competition for recruiting similar talent, but I think the more companies, whether it be an Amazon or other tech companies coming to Charlotte, it's going to help foster more technology talent overall coming to Charlotte, and I think that's good. And so I think I'd err on the side of the catalyst of more tech talent coming into the region because there's another headquarters here than being worried about competing on the talent.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd say mostly good. Should Amazon choose Charlotte, that would be great to put us on the map. It'd bring lots of jobs in, but the reality is we don't have a large enough workforce to absorb 50,000 jobs and everything else that goes along with it. Nor do we have the infrastructure today. Yeah. And so we're talking about massive investments in infrastructure, and we should think about quality of life and everything else that bigger would do. So I think it's mostly good, but I think we need to be very thoughtful about the way in which we do it. From what I've heard, actually, Atlanta is probably a leading candidate. And you can see that for lots of good reasons.
Yeah, it's a number of times our size. Well, one thing I want to wrap up with is just a compliment to both of you as leaders. We've talked about this theme a couple of times today about the idea of being involved in the community and kind of giving back. And it's interesting, I've had some heated debate with entrepreneurial founders about this topic of do you do well first, meaning financially and success, and then you go do good? Or do you do good as you're doing well? And I think both Matt and Mike have been really good examples of while they're super busy dudes and they're running hard on big companies, they have been engaged in the community. They've taken time to speak to founders. They've taken time to come speak at events. And I think it's a really good example for some of the entrepreneurs in the room and else coaching that, yeah, you have to build successful companies and it's really darn hard to do that. But at the same time, if you're not part of the ecosystem, then they're also kind of missing out on that. I know there's a lot of folks in Charlotte we wish were more involved. And so I wanted to say thank you to both of you for being involved, for taking time to be here today. We really appreciate it. So how about a big round of applause for both of them, please?
Thank you. Thanks, Dan.